Hello and welcome to brick tip number 64. I'm going to be talking about these today, which are Technic treaded links. Usually you're going to find these on tracked vehicles in the Technic line, but actually they don't work too well in that aspect. They don't really grab the surface like you'd want, and generally in that aspect they aren't really that great. But if they're taken outside of that and used in some sort of conveyor system, they are really handy. You can see a lot of these used in great ball contraptions. If you search that on YouTube, there's a bunch of these that get used for elevators or conveying boxes down a line or something like that. So I'm going to go through very quickly and show you how these parts are used and how you can incorporate them into your own builds. First, when you see these parts, you might not know at all what to do with them. They do look kind of funky. They have a couple of pinholes in there, which is where their usefulness lies. But when they all connect up, they make a nice chain. And to drive that chain, you're going to be using this type of part. So it's sort of a hexagonal shape, and these divots here fit right into those bars on the back side of the chain. Now you could also use these parts here. They have only 4 off branches, but because the teeth are a bit deeper, they actually bite a little bit better into the chain. And this is trying to fight one of the common problems with using these chains, is that they tend to slip a lot. And because these drive gears slip a lot, what you have to do is make sure you have the proper tension on your chain. This is where a shock absorber comes in really handy. So what you're going to do is you're going to take one of your drives and you're going to put it on your shock absorber, and you don't need a whole lot of tension, but you just need enough to make sure that it's going to remain firm. So usually about 1/2 stud works. And the nice thing about these shock absorbers is that they're exactly 1/2 stud off of 5 studs. So even that little amount of tension is perfect to keep your chain in alignment. I mentioned these pinholes being very useful. That's because if you take a 3/4 pin and you slot it into those pinholes, they fit absolutely perfect in there. And with a series of those, you can create sort of a lift of some sort that can grab items and move them along. Another thing with these tracks is they don't generally like to go into a circle. They're very loosely linked together. So if you want them in a circular pattern, what you're gonna want to do is put some sort of guide along where the outside of the treads can follow. So here's an example of how that would work. I wanted to create a wheel out of chain. So what I did was use some rounded bricks for my wheel hub, wrapped the chain around it, and then I have 2 drive gears in there. If we look on the end here, you can see these 2 gears turning on the outside, and that is what's rotating the chain. And then we have our main drive gear in the middle. We have it connected up to a little medium motor now, and I'm going to show you how this works. So you notice it's nice and tight. The chain isn't flopping around, so there's enough tension on it. And with the guides on the outside, it's keeping its shape perfectly. You can take this little design a step further and actually make it a wheel that spins while having this chain spin around it as well. So here it is. It looks a little bit more complicated than you might think. It has the 2 drive gears going down to our chain link gear. And through the middle, I've held it together with some modified plates with the single hole on the round end. And then just some more axles holding the 2 circles together. So I needed a path for the chain to actually go around. But you can easily do something like this yourself and modify it and even make it more sturdy. Again, the big point with these chains is to make sure that they have enough tension that they will continue to drive. And one problem with this design, before I was just using 1 gear to try to power it, but it would slip out of the gear quite often until I put the second one in place, and then it just worked perfectly. So this is something you're going to want to consider, is possibly having 2 spots where your chain is driven instead of just trying to rely on 1, even if it's a small surface area for the chain to go around. I want to show you a different application of using these threaded links. If you go to the work in progress video for the swing cars that I posted yesterday, you can see that there are 2 sets of these, and they will be forming a barrier in the middle of the column of the swing to hide all the mechanical components. And this one at the top, the tension wasn't quite right, so you can see I put in the shock absorber there. In the bottom one, it did work out perfectly, so I didn't have to worry about putting a shock absorber in the bottom. Although, if you wanted to do that, that's something that you can make sure that your chain doesn't slip at all. So let's turn this on and you can see how these work in tandem. So they work quite well. It does take a bit of work trying to figure out where you're going to have your chains driven from and making sure that nothing is interfering with them. As I said, they tend to slip. So if there's anything interfering with where the chain is driving, it's going to cause a slip to occur. So make sure you got lots of open space, or you're guiding the outside of the treads. So hopefully you found this video useful. If you have, please hit the like and subscribe buttons and share it around so that others can enjoy it. And remember to join in the conversation on Facebook and our other social feeds. Thanks so much for watching. Have a fantastic day. Keep dreaming in bricks. Bye-bye.